So let's just hear how this sounds right off the bat. And you'll notice I've disabled all the other effects that are on my master track here. So all you're hearing is the Waves J37.
And we danced, bop and boom, tripping over our feet in her room, and we rocked, rattled and rolled, and I never seen a girl move like her before, and I'm hooked.
I'm Zane, welcome to Audio Tech TV, where it's my goal to help you conquer the tech so you can unleash your creative beast. And today I'm looking at some of the ways that I mainly use tape saturation in my mixes. And the tape saturation plugin that I'm going to be using today is the Waves J37 tape. This is an emulation of the classic Abbey Road J37 hardware tape machine. And this isn't an overly expensive plugin. You can typically find it on sale for around $35. And like all Waves plugins, it's available on Mac and Windows. Having said all that, you don't need to have this particular tape saturation plugin. There's other tape saturation plugins out there that will have similar features, but this is the one that I'm using today. The cool thing about the Waves J37 tape is that it's more than just a simple tape saturation tool. It can also be used as a creative effect like a tape delay, and also there's some tremolo and vibrato effects in there, and I'll get into those uses a little later. But as we go along, I'm going to show you how I use this plugin, and I'll show you what the different settings do. So by the end of this, you should be comfortable with using either this tape saturation plugin or maybe even another one. So the number one way that I use tape saturation is on my Mixbus or master track or 2-bus, whatever you want to call it. That's where you'll find the Waves J37 tape on my tracks all the time. And what I'll typically do is choose a preset to start with, and it's usually one of these two, the mastering fat, tight, and open, or the mastering mid freak enhancer. So let's start with the fat, tight, and open. And you can hear it's added a little bit of a hiss, and that's this noise level here. It adds that white noise. So I always turn that right down so it's off. We don't want that noise in our track. Unless you're working on a lo-fi project or something like that, you may want that noise. I don't for this. So let's just hear how this sounds right off the bat. And you'll notice I've disabled all the other effects that are on my master track here. So all you're hearing is the Waves J37.
And we danced, bop and boom, tripping over our feet in her room, and we rocked, rattled and rolled, and I never seen a girl move like her before, and I'm hooked.
So that's what that one sounds like. Now we can listen to the other one. Here's that.
And we danced, bop and boom, tripping over our feet in her room, and we rocked, rattled and rolled, and I never seen a girl move like her before, and I'm hooked.
And you can hear it's a very subtle effect. So if you aren't listening to this on headphones or maybe through some studio monitors, you may miss what it's doing, but it's smoothing it out and making it sound less digital, which is exactly what I want on my master track. That's why I use it there all the time. So using one of these presets, we could probably just leave it at that and it's going to be fine, but let's test out some of the settings. And like I said, the first setting I always change is that noise level. Make sure it's off. Now, the next setting is the input and the output. And you'll see that by clicking this, it locks them together. So if I turn this up, so this makes sure that you have an even volume level going out no matter what you set the input to. And by turning it up, you're increasing the amount of saturation. And by turning it down, you're allowing for some more airiness in the mix. Typically, I like to have it turned down, but there's some times where you want to have some of that saturation on your mix bus or master track, whatever you call it. And if you want, you can turn this off, and then you would control these individually. But let's hear what it sounds like using the in and out controls here.
And we danced, bop and boom, tripping over our feet in her room, and we rocked, rattled and rolled, and I never seen a girl move like her before, and I'm hooked.
So you could hear as I turned the input up, it really saturated the sound. And then the next thing you might want to test out, and it's super easy to do this, is these formula buttons here. So the first one is the 888, and this is the type of tape that you're using. So it's based on the actual tape formulas that were used with this machine. So the 888 is based on the older EMI tape from the 60s, and this one's likely going to add some distortion to your track. And I'm not talking about the heavy metal guitar distortion. This is more of an analog imperfection kind of distortion that can be desirable. Not that heavy metal guitar distortion isn't desirable, it's just not desirable on this mix. And then the next one you have is the 811. And this is based on the EMI tape from the 70s, and it's a little more clean, but it still might add a little bit of that analog distortion. And the next model is the 815. And this is the newest and cleanest tape, so if you want a more clean sound, then go with this model. So what I normally do is switch between the tapes and see which one sounds best on my track. And I'll also test out the tape speeds of each formula, as that's also going to affect the sound. So I'm just going to press play and I'm going to toggle between the different formulas and I'll test out some of the speeds and you can hear what the difference is like. Again, you probably should be wearing headphones to really hear the differences, but let's go. So the differences are kind of subtle, but even these subtle little differences, they all add up into a mix, and it could be the difference maker for your tracks. Now, sometimes I'll also play around with these bias settings, as that also affects the track as well. So let's just give that a listen right now. I'm going to put it on the 888, and we'll hear what these different bias settings do. So I don't mind that one right there, the +3 bias. Usually I leave it on the nominal setting, but I'll put it to +3 for this. Then once you have the settings in here that you like, you may want to go back in and adjust the input and output, just in case there was some added saturation with whatever formula and speed and bias you choose. But again, that's not necessary. It just might be something you want to do. And then finally on the Mixbus, I'll go down here to these modeled tracks. So 2 and 3 represent the edge of the tape. And then the 2 and 3 in the middle would be on the center of the tape and likely cleaner sound. And remember, clean might not be necessarily what you want. So test these out and see what works best on your track. So let's just go through and we'll test out the different settings here. Again, they're just subtle differences, but those subtle differences make a huge difference on your overall track. And then once I'm done with these modeled tracks, that's it for my settings on the Mixbus or master track. So that would be done right there. Now the next place that I typically put tape saturation is on my kick drum. So let's go to drum bus up here. Here's the kick drum. There's the J37 on there. I'm just going to solo the drums. And there's actually a really nice preset in here. It's the kick drum warmth preset. So you can just put that on. Again, I'm going to lower the noise level so we don't have that hiss. So I'm going to mute all of the other drums. And now let's hear what it sounds like on the kick drum here. just kind of livens up the kick drum a little bit, and that's going to help it to stand out in the mix. And again, if I wanted, I would just go through these settings here up until the modeled tracks, see what works and what doesn't work. And then I would be done with the kick drum, but I'm just going to leave it at that setting for now. Then we'll go to the next place that I use the J37, which is on the actual drum bus up here. I'm just going to turn the reverb off so we can hear this a little bit better. So let's just hear what this sounds like on the drum bus right now. And I have all of these set to the most clean setting. So it is a very subtle effect again, but it does liven up the drums a bit. So from that more subtle setting, let's look at the next place that I'll use this. And this time it's going to be used as a saturation and creative effect. So I have this instance of the J37 on a vocal send, and I want to use this as a tape delay. And there are some great vocal presets in here. Let's just hear the manual settings that I have put in right now so you can hear what this sounds like, and then I'll go through some of the vocal presets.
Then we danced, bopped and boomed, tripping over our feet in her room, and we rocked, rattled and rolled, and I never seen a girl move like her before, and I'm hooked.
All right, so that was my manual settings I put in. So right here is a cool Lennon style slap delay, and it also adds some saturation as well. So this is a really cool effect. Let's give this a listen to hear what it sounds like on vocals.
Then we danced, bopped and boomed, tripping over our feet in her room, and we rocked, rattled and rolled, and I never seen a girl.
So I really like that preset there. And there's some other presets in here that might sound good as well.
Then we danced, bopped and boomed, tripping over our feet in her room, and we rocked, rattled and rolled, and I never seen a girl.
Now let's look at the delay settings here so you can have an idea of how it works. And you'll see down here in mode, it's on send return mode right now because I have this on a send track. If I had it directly on my vocal track, I would switch this to insert mode. And that's the difference with the insert and send mode. It's all in how you're going to be using it. And then for delay type, you have slap, feedback, and ping pong. You also have high pass and low pass filters here that you can use to adjust your sound even more. And then up here, these left and right knobs adjust how much of the delay you want on your track. And then in here, you have the delay timing, and you can lock these together. So when you adjust it, they adjust together, or you can adjust them individually, however you want. You can also sync this to your DAW settings, and then you can switch it between things like quarter note, eighth note dotted, and you can just play around with the timing and the amount as you play back your audio, and you can find what's best for your track. And by using it as a delay, you're still getting all of that tape saturation goodness, but you're also getting this creative tape delay effect as well. So now from the vocals, let's go up to lead guitar, which is another place that I tend to use the J37. And this time I'm going to use the wow and flutter section over here. And these act as a tremolo and vibrato kind of effect, along with the delay that we have over here. So I like to have a little bit of delay on my lead guitar, and then you can just add some of this vibrato and tremolo effect over here to get a really cool analog effect on there. All right, I'm just going to switch over to a different guitar sound, just one that's going to highlight the wow and flutter a little bit more. So let's load up a guitar preset here and hear how this sounds. All right, so that doesn't sound too bad. Now I'm just going to play around with the wow and flutter settings here. can hear those different vibrato and tremolo settings from each of these effects, which can be really nice on a lead guitar. And then another thing that you might want to do is add some saturation. And this is extra saturation on top of any saturation that you might have up here. So let's just add some up here. And then I'm going to add more saturation down here so we can hear what that sounds like, as this is a very clean guitar signal. So let's dirty it up a bit. And it may not seem like a lot on some of these tracks. Right there, I showed you kind of a more over-the-top example, but some of the tracks weren't as noticeable right away, but all of these little things add up in the final mix, and they can be that thing that makes your music stand apart from the rest of the pack. If you want to check out more Waves plugin reviews, click up here, or click down here to see what YouTube recommends. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Also, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching. For Audio Tech TV, I'm Zane. Keep creating, and we'll talk soon.